It is difficult, too, for temporary foreign workers who come by the thousands to work on Canadian farms every season. Without them, crops wouldn't get planted, harvested, or processed. They are exempt from the travel restrictions, but they live in close quarters and need to be kept safe. Now the federal government is giving farmers financial support to help to do that. $50 million will go to farmers and food processors to help cover the costs. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, explains. David?
Well, Donna, for the first 3 months of last year, 2019, about 23,000 temporary foreign workers were brought to Canada to work on farms and in food processing facilities. They are a vital source of experienced labor for Canada's agri-food industry.
But this year is different. Thanks to COVID-19, these foreign workers are now subject to a strict new health regimen in order to work in Canada. It starts in their home country with a health assessment by an official accredited by Health Canada. Each worker will be told in their own language about the quarantine protocol that they'll face in Canada, and they will have to wear a mask while traveling. And once in Canada, every worker must be quarantined for 14 days. During this quarantine period, employers must do the following. They must pay each worker their regular wages during the period when they cannot yet work. They have to provide accommodation that allows for a worker to safely self-isolate. And they have to bring food to their workers, since workers will not be allowed to visit grocery stores or restaurants.
Government authorities will follow up regularly, and employers or workers who do not comply will face severe sanctions and fines.
The program announced Monday would see employers get a subsidy of $1,500 per worker to help cover the cost of these quarantines. But that may not pay all the bills.
The $1,500 will certainly be welcome. For some farms, it will be enough. For others, it probably won't.
Now, the government doesn't have all the details yet about the program. When can you apply? Where do you apply? But Agriculture Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau did say that the payments will be retroactive to March 25th. That's the date when the mandatory 14-day quarantine order went into effect. Donna?
Okay. David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. An unprecedented agreement between the world's biggest oil producers is better than nothing for Canada's beleaguered oil and gas sector, especially in Alberta. Oil prices did inch higher after OPEC and its allies reached a deal yesterday to reduce output by about 9.7 million barrels a day. As Heather Yourex-West explains, it is not enough, though, to offset the drop in global demand.
For Canada's energy sector, the last few weeks have been incredibly difficult. Kevin O'Dwyer has had to lay off most of his staff.
February 15th, we were 273 people. And today we are just over 100.
Record low oil prices are behind the turmoil, a decision last month to ramp up global production partly to blame. After several days of tense negotiations, OPEC and its Russian-led allies finally agreed Sunday to tighten up the taps, reducing output by about 10%.
It's not enough. It's probably too little too late, to be honest.
While the production cut is something Canada's energy sector has been hoping for, there is little to celebrate yet. That's because the global supply for oil is still greatly outpacing demand.
We're filling up tanks quickly around the world, and there's just going to be no place to put the oil. So prices have stayed low this morning here, Monday morning, reflecting that this cut isn't really going to change that situation. We have too much production and not enough demand, and that's a big problem.
It's why Canadian oil producers have been cutting back on production on their own. The province expects production will soon be down 25%. But in the oil sands, shutting down entirely is difficult. And so the price of a barrel of Western Canadian Select will likely sink further into negative territory, where Alberta producers would have to pay others to take their oil away.
I think it's very much a danger, and we could face it in the next 2 weeks.
The silver lining in all of this, pump prices aren't expected to rise anytime soon. But that's of little comfort for businesses struggling to survive. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
The new series that goes inside the COVID-19 pandemic from the front lines.
We're still in a very critical stage of Canada's COVID-19 epidemic.
To the everyday heroes helping us cope with the unprecedented change.
We want to help because there's a desperate need.
We shouldn't fend for ourselves.
We have to all come together and help each other out.
Coronavirus, the new reality. A Global News special, Sundays at 7 on Global.